Konnichiwa. My name's Marissa, and I'm going to be talking about the Japanese heritage. First, I'm going to talk about the case study. We have Ken and Marianne Shimizu. Ken is from Tokyo, and Marianne is from the United States. They both live in Tokyo and have been Methodist missionaries for over 30 years. Ken's 98-year-old mother lives with the couple. Ken was recently diagnosed with glaucoma, and he has lost a significant amount of his peripheral vision. Marianne was recently diagnosed with hypertension. She has come to the conclusion that her hypertension has stemmed from the stress of taking care of Ken's mother. She is very confused and requires a considerable amount of care, but Ken is very conflicted because he thinks that it's unthinkable to put his mother in a long-term care facility. So keep this in mind as we learn about the Japanese culture and where this stems from. Next, I'm going to talk about the two religions that are widely practiced in Japan. First, we have Shintoism and Buddhism. Shintoism is an ancient religion, and it's based on the belief that the gods are represented in natural surroundings, such as rivers, trees, or mountains. They're built with shrines on them to honor these gods. Shintoism believes that illness and disease are unclean and impure. So when these people enter the shrines, it is very important for them to wash their hands. Cleanliness is very important to their spiritual purity. Buddhism treats aging and illness as a natural process, and it is often embraced later in life towards the end of life. It has very specific end-of-life care, and they're often rituals. They go through a process called samsara, or as we know it, reincarnation, and this is a belief that they can be reborn as either a demigod, a human, an animal, but it all depends on the thoughts or actions that the person took during their life. They focus a lot on the spiritual and mental state during this time. They don't like to prolong life because they want to encourage a good rebirth. And focusing on the spiritual and mental state, they want to induce the person to be calm and peaceful and remind the person of their good deeds. They'll often call in monks to read to them because it brings them peace. The filial piety is a duty of children to take care of their parent, where they consider it shameful if a parent is placed into a care facility. So thinking of the case study, Marianne wants to place Ken's mother into a care facility because the stress of taking care of her is causing her a medical condition. And Ken is very conflicted with this because he doesn't want to bring shame to himself for putting his mother there. With healthcare providers, physicians are referred to as senseis, and they're very, very well respected. Whatever the physician says, it is never questioned by the patient. It is actually expected for the physician to specifically tell the patient what to do. Physicians run the hospitals, and sometimes they own them. So in the United States, we have a lot of administration and a lot of tiers of jobs in a hospital, but in Japan, it's mostly run just by the physicians. And for nurses, it's very, very different too. As of the mid-1980s, nursing was not a very well-respected position in the hospital, which can be very conflicting because in the United States, nurses are very connected with their patients. We try to establish a patient-nurse bond, and it helps a lot when we teach patients. And I feel like it would be very hard to actually teach patients and, carry out a care plan or teach them certain drugs and how to take them when the patient is very influenced by the decision of the doctor and what the doctor says. So I feel like it can put a barrier between the nurse-patient relationship. And the nurses are titled based on their genders and their roles. So males are called Kango-san, which translate to Mr. Nurse, and females are called Kango-fu, which translate to nurse wife. So these titles are very, very gender related. Okay, so now I'm going to go over the traditional forms of medicine. They believe in an energy called qi, and they believe that many illnesses stem from the interruption of qi. We're going to go over Kampu and then Shiatsu massage. Kampo is the use of medicinal herbs to restore qi. It's very holistic, and it's a very individualized treatment. It's based primarily on the signs and symptoms that the patient presents, and then the physician will do extra diagnostic treatments such as lab work, MRIs, like CAT scans, and develop a medicinal herb based on their signs and symptoms. And it's mostly just to relieve the symptoms and restore the harmony in the bodily functions. Shiatsu massage, it was primarily developed in Japan. It's the act of applying pressure to specific body points in a rhythmic sequence to restore qi. So it's practically what we have nowadays, what we call a body massage. It's commonly practiced around the world, but it was primarily developed and used in Japan. So now we're going to talk about the mind and body connection. The Japanese believe in a spirit called kokoro, and they believe it is located in the thorax. Kokoro can be translated as the mind, body, heart, will, feeling, intention, thought, or the core. Kokoro is the core of the human being that must be involved in any successful action taken by the individual. And this brings up a lot of discussion, because back in around 1960s, they believed that when a patient is clinically brain dead and that they are an organ donor, that removing the heart will disrupt the spirit. And actually, a Japanese doctor was arrested for performing heart surgery in the late 1969. It was illegal back then, but recently, about 20 years ago in the late 1990s, it was finally legalized. And here are my resources. Thank you for listening.